Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast of Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I am joined here, as always, by the man who is very excited to talk about one of these teams' quarterbacks. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing very good. Been a good week, getting back to the swing of things. We have 6 shows left, man.
Yeah. Well, until the
Start of the season, yes.
Yeah, not ever. We'll continue on. That'd be weird if we ended right at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, just came back next off season.
Ooh, that's a good idea for a podcast. Only off season podcast.
Only NFL off season.
Yeah, exactly. We will not be doing that. We have 6 podcasts until football season. Kyle, we have a football game tomorrow. We technically have 2 teams that are employed by 2 groups of men employed by NFL teams will play football against each other tomorrow.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'll be something.
It'll be a game.
Yes.
Are you tuning in? Are you watching?
Oh yeah, I'll be watching. The nice thing about the Hall of Fame game now is there at least is some like backups that get in. You know, it used to be like the Hall of Fame game, literally like the second string wouldn't even get in because it was a 5th preseason game. Now that it's a 4th preseason game, if you get more actual people that we've heard of before.
Not too many. Who's playing in this again? Jacksonville and Vegas, right?
Yeah, which also a weird. I'm not sure why we're going with Las Vegas, a team that had no first or second round pick.
I don't know. And then, I mean, it's called the Hall of Fame game. Does Jacksonville have any Hall of Famers?
I don't know about that. I don't know. Yeah, it's possible someone's made their way to Jacksonville that's ended up in the Hall of Fame, but I don't know.
Not by their choice.
Yeah, well, soon Trayvon Walker will be there, and they'll have it there.
All right. Well, we'll see about that one. I don't know about that.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the meat of the episode. Kyle, maybe not our best chit chat session of the podcast so far.
We're just ready to talk NFC South, man. We're rolling. We are red hot with this stuff right now. Division predictions continue. We're wrapping up the NFC this week. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun talking NFC football, and I don't think we're going to break any news with this one.
No, maybe not too many hot takes here. I feel like at the same time, though, there's always people in every fan base that are convinced their team is a fringe playoff team, even though they suck. And I think there's a couple of teams that might fall into that category.
There definitely is a couple teams here. They have passionate fan bases. One has been good for a long time. I don't know. I still see this still feels like a one-horse race to me. And don't get me wrong, that one horse is really good. But it looks like that this could be a one playoff team division to me.
Yeah, I like this comment too. Can't wait to hear Jackson kiss Tom Brady's butt. Yeah, I mean, of course, that's what you should be doing. Tom Brady is incredible. Why would anyone not be very complimentary towards Brady?
And also, you have to know this podcast by now, right?
Like, yeah.
Between the two of us, I think there is going to be some Tom Brady praise here.
Yeah, might happen. We'll see, though. Stay tuned to see if we praise Tom Brady or not. See what tier he makes it in. I have a feeling the Buccaneers will not be early on in this podcast because, as always, the way we do this is Kyle is going to give his rankings. He will give, who's 4th in the division, then 3rd, then 2nd, and then 1st. And then we will get into that team. I will kind of, go down and get into more detail, position group by position group. So that's how this will be working. Also, someone already saying, Jackson about to sleep in my Panthers. Yeah, you might be right. Kyle, I think maybe the most interesting question is who do you have finishing last in the NFC South?
Yeah, so the NFC South I have ranked as the worst division in football. I think there's 2 candidates for it. Right now I'm ranking this because I think the bottom of this division is just so bad. And speaking of the bottom of the division, it's going to start this season with the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay.
I have the Atlanta Falcons 4th. I think there's good things about this team. I think it's young. I think they have solid players. I like the talent they're building. But that talent isn't going to get them anywhere this season. I had Drake London as my number 1 receiver. They took him first. Kyle Pitts has shown flashes of being brilliant. He just needs some touchdowns. I like their corners, which is at least something to build off of. But to me, this is it's a bunch of parts, and I mean, they're in a rebuilding phase. This is last year we felt like it was a rebuild for the Falcons, and then they teared it down even further with letting guys like Matt Ryan go, and now it feels like a full-on rebuild. I have this team last in the division. I think there's two teams that could, finish last in this division. This is definitely the one I'm picking right now.
Yeah, I don't think the Falcons are going to be great. I could see the Falcons being fun, though. I'll say that about the Atlanta Falcons. I think one of the biggest issue with the Atlanta Falcons, starting out, every one of these, we start with the two most important men in the room, in the organization, and that is going to be the head coach and quarterback. I mean, okay, I guess maybe like a GM is more important, whatever. But, the two most important that we discuss here, the quarterback and head coach. Arthur Smith finished 24th on my head coaching rankings. He's done some nice things, but again, it's just, part of it is the lack of talent they had last year. He has been able to do some stuff. And then for quarterback, this is where things get a little tricky, whether it's Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder. It's a tier 5 quarterback room either way. And that's probably going to be the main thing that hurts the Falcons this year.
Yeah, and I mean, once again, we talked about this a little bit. This was a team that I think at one point were ranked dead last in NFL DVOA, and they ended up with 7 wins or whatever it was. I mean, that was a miracle in itself. I don't really know how it happened. I haven't looked at the turnover numbers, but I'm sure that speaks to it. I'm sure also having, pretty good quarterback play also helped those metrics too. Because on EPA, Matt Ryan he finished 21st, but I didn't think he was that bad. And then just going off of EPA, this team was 28th in EPA last year on defense, 27th on offense. So I felt like they definitely overperformed expectations and then lost their steady part, which was that quarterback position. And now we're going to see how it works out. I'm interested to see how Desmond Ridder translates to the next level. He played in college a long time. He got better basically every single season, which I guess is a good thing. But at the same time, he played a lot of seasons in college. So I don't think it's going to be like a Joe Burrow thing where all of a sudden he's ready to hit the NFL running. I think it's just he played a lot in college. We'll see how he develops.
Yeah. Going back to the Falcons winning, as many games they did last year, like the Falcons were in a playoff spot, I think like around like week 10 or week 11, and they were fighting for a playoff spot for a while. I don't think at any point we thought that they were a playoff level team, but they were in contention. One thing that's kind of gotten better and worse is the receiving core because, no Calvin Ridley now, suspended for the whole year. But I do think that they have some improvements here. They have Kyle Pitts, obviously, who was very good as a rookie already, and tight ends tend to, have a sophomore jump, and maybe he will do that. Or maybe, he doesn't, since he didn't struggle as a rookie, that won't happen. I don't know. But Anthony Ferkster is the other tight end there. And then for the wide receivers, Drake London, you mentioned him earlier. Very fascinated in seeing how he can work in this Arthur Smith offense. And even like some other, the other guy I'm interested in is Brian Edwards in more of a bigger role. He showed flashes with Las Vegas, so he's kind of interesting. But again, a real lack of depth with this wide receiving room. You look like you might be seeing Demir Bird and Olamide Zaccheaus. Tough name there. If I'm struggling to pronounce your name as a wide receiver, it's not great there. I have it as a tier 3 because I do like Drake London and I do like Kyle Pitts, but the depth is an issue with the receiving core.
Yeah, and the thing is like, I think it's Zaccheaus. Zaccheaus had some moments last season too, and it's between that with I think Bird's a solid 4th or 5th guy too. Like, what did you end up having this as? Tier 4?
Tier 3.
Tier 3.
They were the last team on tier 3, but they made tier 3.
So would it be crazy to say if Ridley's on this team, this is a tier 2 wide receiving group?
I don't think so. I think that's really what they need is they need just one more option because you have London. I guess we have to see what we see out of Drake London, and there's a lot of good receiving rooms, but there certainly they're going to look good next year. You would assume as long as Drake London meets expectations.
Yeah. So I think that this is a good pass catching group. Not to mention, like, I don't know if he's going to replicate his success running the ball from last season, but Cordarrelle Patterson has always been a guy who's been a force in the passing game out of the backfield. So
Has he always been a guy?
Well,
I feel like he's been a guy since he joined the Falcons that can do that.
He's always been good, I think, catching the ball out of the backfield. He just doesn't do it a whole lot. Now that you've also added it to the, his running resume from last season, he's starting to look like a pretty good running back option. But at the same time, I still think he's solid in that role. And they got depth behind him, I think. So I think, this is going to be a pretty good pass catching group. It's just, to me, can the quarterback get the ball to these guys?
Yeah. The to build off that with Cordell Patterson and the running back room, he is their Pro Football Focus's 5th rated running back last year. You also have Damian Williams and then 5th round pick Tyler Algier. So got some guys in the running back room. I'm giving it a tier 3 running back room. Again, a lot of good running back rooms, but we'll see if Patterson can replicate the magic he had last year. Also, listen, the Falcons aren't going to be great next year, I don't think. Let Cordell Patterson return kickoffs. We want to see him return kickoffs. He's good for at least 1 or 2 touchdowns a year. Let him do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I think he, I mean, I don't know. It's like one of those situations where you want your best athlete on the field as much as possible. You don't want to wear him down, but at the same time, running back a couple kicks is not going to, cause his body to break down anymore.
Yeah, right. I would think so. For the offensive line to round out the offense, it's an inconsistent offensive line. There's a couple players I really like on this offensive line. Jake Matthews has been a consistent fringe top 10 tackle for a while now. I think Chris Lindstrom is one of the more underrated guards in football. And then center Matt Hennessy, who his PFF grade was very good last year when he got that's when he got most of his playing time. He was a 3rd round pick in 2020. So that stuff all very good. The question is kind of the other two. You have Caleb McGarry at right tackle, who's, he was a former 1st rounder, has yet to live up to the hype. Jalen Mayfield, who he's had some of the worst games I've ever seen out of a guard. So that's maybe something you would like to see get cleared up a little bit. Your backup is a 6th round pick that you just drafted. So, some holes there. So that's why it's tier 3, but similar to the receiving core, some stuff to like as well.
Yeah, and it really comes down to if some of these, early draft picks start to work out a little bit, this could be a good offensive line. But like you said, those guys that they just had the last couple of seasons haven't really performed to the expectations. And so it brings it down a little bit, but I still think there's nice pieces here.
Yeah, I would agree as well. So, some value with the offense, 26th best offense in football, according to me. And moving on to the defense, probably, you mentioned it as well, probably the shining spot of this team is going to be the corners with AJ Terrell and Casey Hayward, who Casey Hayward was fantastic last year in a scheme that I'm assuming is going to be pretty similar this year. And AJ Terrell, obviously, he was, an all-pro last year. The safeties maybe aren't quite as great with Eric Harris and Jalen Hawkins at safety, and then your guy Richie Grant as well in the mix. But I think you can live with okay safeties if you have great corners. So there's also a bit of a depth issue here with the Falcons, but with those 2 great corners, it's enough to put them in tier 2 for their coverage unit.
Yeah, I think that's fair because I think this is actually one of the better corner duos in the league. And AJ Terrell's a tier 1 guy, without a doubt. And he's going to be for, it seems like, a very long time. That's someone they should lock in. It's going to start hopefully they can find ways to put better talent around him. That's just all I hope for. But I think this is a good start, and I think that there's nice pieces here. If guys like Richie Grant get better this season, this turns into a pretty good secondary. But for now, it seems like it's a couple corners, and then the rest of the defense scares me a little bit.
Yeah, you also have Grady Jarrett in there to round out the defense. He's kind of he's the AJ Terrell of the front 7, basically. You have the kind of the one consistent great piece there, and at the edge rusher position, there's some okay players. Lorenzo Carter's okay. You just drafted 2 day 2 guys who can potentially come in and be effective. Arnold Ebiketie was someone I had a 1st round grade on. He went in the 2nd round, so I'm a big fan of his game. D'Angelo Malone, a 3rd rounder as well at the edge rusher position, and then Tyquan Graham, it looks like he'll be the other interior defensive lineman for Atlanta, who was a 5th round pick and wasn't great last year. So he's played 1 year, he's a rookie, not great, but that's kind of interior defensive lineman takes some time. And then for the linebackers, you have Rashad Evans, who maybe hasn't lived up to the draft hype, but is fascinating to me. Deion Jones had, PFF hated him last year. He was 81st out of 87 eligible linebackers, but he's typically been great. So I'm going to write that off as an outlier season. And then you have, Troy Anderson, who was a 2nd round pick this past draft, who's a fascinating player. This Troy Anderson guy, I mean, he played quarterback, he played running back, and then just started playing linebacker like his last season in college, basically learned it there, and now is getting drafted. So there's some potential for like him to continue to get better for sure. And then Mikael Walker, the other linebacker. A lot of linebackers here for the Falcons. couple guys I like, couple guys I'm interested in, but this is tier 5 across the board for pass rush and run defense. And then with Younghoe Koo being a tier 1 kicker, this brings their total to 6.61 wins, which is 25th in football, 11th in the NFC.
Yeah, that feels all about right. I mean, yeah, there's real depth with this group too, because I mean, it's it wasn't long ago that Nick Kwiatkowski was reviewed as one of the better linebackers in football, and he's on their depth chart still. There's guys on this team that I think could really perform. I'm curious to see what the Deion Jones things is, because he had 3 superb seasons, then was like pretty good last season, and then like you said, PFF did not like him or 2 years ago, and then last season PFF did not like him at all. I wonder if it's just kind of the product of the talent around him too, which is also hurting him. I think it could be a few other things, but yeah, I mean, I think he's still one of the better linebackers in the league, and it's just it still feels like the same kind of Falcons defense we've been talking about for a couple years now, where it's like you got your 3 big names, and then it's just a bunch of guys kind of filling spots. No, some of these guys need to start working out.
And listen, they built a defense that was able to get to the Super Bowl with kind of that sort of style, but they just had a historically great offense, which I don't think they'll have this year.
No, definitely not going to be a historically great offense. But like you said, I think there's pieces on this team are going to be fun to watch. I think there's pieces on this team that could be good, but I think this is still going to be years down the line before we start looking to take this Falcons group seriously.
Yeah, I think so as well. Let's move on. Let's go to the next team, which I have to assume is going to be the Carolina Panthers here.
Yeah, it is the Panthers for me. I did think they got an upgrade at quarterback in the Baker Mayfield trade. How much of an upgrade? I don't really know. Neither one of us are Sam Darnold guys. We were both interested in Matt Corral, and it seems like he's going to get a year to develop. Look, I mean, there's things about this Panthers team to really like too. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, I think DJ Moore's a talented receiver, even though I think, people put up some of his yardage stuff and put him in the upper echelon of guys. I just don't think he's there. I think Christian McCaffrey is obviously great when he's on the field. I think they got a couple pieces throughout the offense that I think are decent. I think they got a couple players on the defense that are decent. And this is a team that I think defensively were ranked in the top. They were 7th in defensive EPA last season. So this team has good players. It just doesn't seem like there's enough good players and there's not enough star talent. And it just feels like, once again, this offense falls apart when McCaffrey's not out there.
Is that kind of on Kyle's end or my end? Are we back?
I don't know. Am I back?
Yeah, you seem good now. I don't know if that was on your end or my end. I just heard sound like you were a robot for a second, but we're good.
Okay. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I think there's good players on this team. There's just not enough good players. And then once again, I feel like this offense kind of falls apart when Christian McCaffrey goes out. And if he goes out again, how good is this offense going to be?
Yeah, I think that's, can we just replay what we did with the Falcons again for the Panthers? Because they feel like they're almost the exact same team. Like, there's differences clearly, but they're not that different.
Not that different. No.
Just in the sense of very similar, because, the coverage units are very different and stuff like that. But just in the sense of there are 2 teams that aren't great, but have some very interesting players with these teams.
Yeah. I think the only difference is that if you combine the Falcons' offensive talent with the Panthers' defensive talent and then added a few guys in throughout, I think that's a really good team. But the problem is that the Panthers have a really nice defense, I think, in a bad offense. The Falcons have nice offensive players in a bad defense.
Interesting. I think maybe if you combine these two teams together, are they a better team than the Buccaneers?
Because of the quarterback play, I'll say no, but I don't think it's far off.
Yeah, maybe tough there. It all starts with the quarterback and head coach. Matt Rule was 29th on my quarterback rankings, which it's a shame because I actually don't think that. I feel like he should be better than that because the situation he's been in has been unfortunate. I think that I'd love to see him hopefully get some more time here, and with this big contract, maybe he will get a bit of a longer leash. The quarterback situation, though, is a complete carousel. It's kind of funny in my notes. I wrote Baker Mayfield's name twice and didn't put Sam Darnold because I just didn't notice because that's how little they seemingly mean to me. And then Darnold, Mayfield, Matt Corral. The Mayfield edition might bump it up to tier 4. I still have it at tier 5. That's what I had before the Mayfield edition. I'm just going to keep it there for now, at least. But I might make some adjustments before a month from now when we do our final predictions and all that stuff. But, listen, Mayfield has shown some flashes. Matt Corral, I liked his college tape. I'm very fascinated by him. I was surprised he fell so far in the draft. And Sam Darnold has, shown some flashes. I'm not a Sam Darnold guy. I don't think that's going to work out. You can talk yourself into Mayfield, though, if you want to. But if this team is going to be competitive this year, they have to figure that
out. Yeah, and I think this has been kind of the thing with the Matt Rule tenure is what is this position? And I feel like it's almost like the Panthers have felt like in this entire Matt Rule era of like sticking a Band-Aid on a leaky boat sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like their solution has been trying to Band-Aid everything. And this team's just gushing blood right now because they can't figure out this quarterback spot. They have 4 guys that it's like, okay, maybe Baker Mayfield. Oh, you could change your offense around PJ Walker. Matt Corral has some talent out of college.
Here's Cam Newton.
Yeah. Sam Darnold, a lot of arm talent there. It's like there's 4 guys you could talk yourself into, but you just know that it just doesn't feel like that there's an actual answer to this still. This is what, year 3 with Matt Rule, and there's still no answer to this. I mean, that's a problem, and it's just like you keep going back to it. Mac Jones was sitting there, man. Like he was just sitting there, and that would have solved all this. That would have solved all these problems. Yeah, I mean, I just think that's the glaring hole in this team right now is that, like, if this has like a tier 3 quarterback, I think this is I don't know if it's quite there yet, but at least it might be competitive and close to a playoff spot.
Interesting. So we're going to get into some arguments, I think, in a second, because I am sleeping on the Panthers, as the commenter said. Let's go to the other. Can we please just get a healthy Christian McCaffrey season? The answer is probably no, right? Anytime we're talking about a great running back who's coming off of back-to-back seasons being banged up, it's rare that they then, Adrian Peterson, yes, he was the exception. It's rare that this happens. I want to see Christian McCaffrey healthy, though, because he is so dynamic when he is healthy. Also, Chuba Hubbard and Donta Foreman, I think, make for good depth. The question is just McCaffrey's health, and for that reason, I have him at tier 2.
This team has depth at skill position. I mean, after McCaffrey, it's Chuba Hubbard. Like you said, Foreman's also a guy who's produced in the past. So, I mean, there's guys here. But, yeah, I mean, this team's offense literally goes with this guy in the backfield. And it's a whole new dynamic when he's not out there because of what he can do in the passing game, what he can do in the run game, just big plays in general. They don't get big plays when he's not on the field, and he needs to be out there for this team to have success.
Yeah, and one thing that helps about the depth at the skill position is that all of their wide receivers, except for DJ Moore, probably should just be depth anyways. So that makes it work out well. I do not like this skill position group, Kyle. I like DJ Moore. DJ Moore is good. DJ Moore is not elite, but DJ Moore is good. That's kind of how I've always viewed DJ Moore. He's a number. If you're worse than DJ Moore, you're not a number 1 receiver. If you're better than DJ Moore, you're a number 1 receiver. That's kind of my view of DJ Moore. Robbie Anderson had one very good year with the Panthers, has really not done a lot of great stuff outside of that 1 year. You also have, Terrence Marshall Jr., maybe he'll step it up. I was very high on him coming out of his draft, as were many, but he was, didn't get a ton of playing time. It was not great when he was on the field. Shee Smith, a 6th-round pick from a couple years ago. You have Rashard Higgins, who, was the 106th rated wide receiver according to PFF. And then the tight end tandem of Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas, who they said, we got to keep Ian Thomas. Let's pay Ian Thomas. He's the guy we cannot let get out of our room. Tier 5 wide receiver room for me. Also, I'll let you talk about that, your response in a second, but we have a super chat from the official sponsor of this podcast, Overlap 618. It's your boy Overlap. Oh yeah, I'm back like I never left. Can't wait to see Tampa win, and the Penguin suit will be worn. Also, don't forget to touch on the Ryan Jensen injury, how long he will be out, and possible replacements. Yes, I will do that. Thank you, the great Overlap 618. Kyle, any thoughts on the Panthers receiving core or Overlap 618's comment?
Overlap, good to see you, man. We'll get on the Ryan Jensen stuff in Tampa Bay. They'll be coming up. Yeah, it's all kind of projection based, but it's like, okay, so I think Robbie Anderson's better than what he showed last year, even if he's not like awesome.
Sure.
Fair. Like, I think
Yeah.
that might get a little bit better. I think
Mhm.
Terrace Marshall, I mean, you have to hope he gets better. That was another guy I was also high on, so maybe that gets
Mhm.
better too. I mean, Rashad Higgins shows flashes. I mean, so there's 4 guys that it's like, I kinda like moments, but we need to see it actually, like it's
Yeah,
all speculative to me. It's like, it's gotta show on the football field.
but here's my thing. Name me a wide receiver who, like, can you name like 5 wide receivers who you can't think of some moments for? I can think of one. That stupid Ben Skowronek guy for the Rams who missed every single pass ever thrown at him. But other than that, like every receiver, I think of like, hey, Scotty Miller has shown more flashes than Terrence Marshall has, and we're probably not even going to talk about him when we get to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, you haven't watched a lot of Patriots game clearly, but, no.
Well, okay, but that's just kind of my point. Is like you can say that about so many. You can say that about literally 100 different wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Marshall thing is he was a rookie, so you got to hope that I think we
Sure.
give I think I think as a whole, as a sports fandom, I think we're a little too harsh on rookies sometimes. Receiver is one of those positions you kind of like to see a little more impact as a rookie. I think
Hmm.
he could be better this next season. And then, I mean, Anderson has shown it before in the past. He should
Sure.
be a better number 2 than what he was last season. So, I mean, if those two things kind of work out, then all of a sudden it's a little bit better. But even then, like at this best, is this even a tier 4 receiving group at its best?
At its best, I would say it is. Yeah. I mean, I had it as the highest tier 5. I think if DJ Moore continues to be DJ Moore, who again he's very good. You really ideally need 3 options, but if Terrence Marshall Jr. does take that step forward and Robbie Anderson can be the solid number 2, we've seen him be in the past. Like, yeah, that's probably at least that I think you could get into tier 3 potentially.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's probably in that group, but I don't think it's anything higher than that. But I mean, I think the hope is that these guys do get better. Um, we just haven't seen a lot of talent development from this group, it seems like, in the 3 years of this rule era.
Yeah, yeah, and that's just kind of been the issue. Is just like these guys have talent, just haven't been able to put it together. To round out the offense, you have good tackles, Akeem Ikwonu, who they just drafted 6th overall, and Taylor Motton, who's been a very good tackle for quite some time now. So the outside should be very good. You added Bradley Bozeman at the center position from the Ravens, who has been sort of okay for his career, but was good last year. He was sort of above average last year, so I think the hope is that that can continue. And then you have, Austin Corbett as well in the mix, who you added. He's a very good player. The question is really the other guard. Looks like it's going to be Brady Christensen, who was a 2021 third round pick. Who he played some tackle and was bad at it. He's probably going to play guard this year. Is what I'm assuming. So that question mark still puts him in tier 3. And just Keem Ikwonu is a rookie. How well will he be right away? Even though we have high hopes for him. But there's stuff to like about this offensive line. So because of that, the offense is still 30th because of a tier 5 receiving core and quarterback situation. But I like the offensive line.
Yeah, it had nowhere to go but up. It was bad last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't love the idea of kind of just patching players together to try and fix this situation on the offensive line, but this team needed some upgrades badly. I really liked Kwonu too. I mean, I think I'm trying to think back. I had Neil 1 just because I thought the physical talent was greater than anybody else, but at the same time, there just seemed to be no like fundamental. I don't think there was any more fundamentally solid offensive tackle than Kwonu in the draft.
Yeah, you could argue Moses, but I like the Kwanu's run blocking a little better than Morgan Moses, or not Morgan Moses. It was
Charles Cross.
Yeah, Charles Cross. I don't know why I was confused those 2 names. Yeah, Charles Cross, Morgan Moses. Yeah, not a rookie by any stretch of imagination. Let's move on to the defense. So one of the things I sort of didn't realize is I really don't like this coverage unit. I just don't. I don't like the cornerback depth whatsoever. J.C. Horn showed some flashes as a rookie. We didn't get a ton of playing time, but he looked good in that sample size. So, he was the 8th overall pick. There's reason to believe that he can be good. But is there reason to believe he's going to be a lockdown number 1 corner right away? It remains to be seen. There's a question mark there. You also have Dante Jackson, he's fine. He's like sort of a low end number 2 guy, I feel like. And then you have CJ Henderson, who's the the number 3 guy here, who again, maybe he'll live up to the hype. I loved him out of the draft. That hasn't worked out. like the safeties, Xavier Woods, Jeremy Chin. I think that's fine. But as a whole, I just don't love this cornerback room. It's tier 4 for me because I think that again, where's your depth at? And if JC Horn does not live up to the hype, this is a really bad. That turns into tier 5 if JC Horn has a bad year. So they need JC Horn to really play. I feel like this coverage unit goes as JC Horn goes, I think.
I think so. Losing Stephon Gilmore hurts. Yeah, I don't really think there was actually a chance he re-signed there or anything. But at the same time, like that is a glaring hole at that point. I think Horn. I had Horn that number 1 quarterback out of that draft. And once again, they passed on a quarterback for that spot. I do like his game, so it'll be interesting to see how he continues to develop. The injury obviously hurt, but yeah, I mean, there's solid safeties back here. They should be able to drop in coverage. I think Shaq Thompson's actually a pretty good coverage linebacker too. So I think all of it should kind of help because I mean, I think it was middle of the pack as far as EPA per drop back. So I don't think it's a bad coverage unit, but it really we need to start to see some hierarchy here with Horn cementing himself as the number 1 guy, kind of patching together that second guy, good safeties, good coverage linebackers, and kind of go from there.
Yeah. To round out the defense, you mentioned Shaq Thompson, very good linebacker. Then you also have some intriguing linebackers. You have like Frankie Louvu, who plays off ball and he plays defensive line. So, showed some splashes in a small sample size. You also have, Corey Littleton, who I'm very interested in. Corey Littleton is someone who played, very well for the Rams, goes to the Raiders, and immediately is awful. So hopefully, a different situation can sort of, be good for him. Braden Smith, also a 4th-round pick, who should be fascinating as well. And then for the defensive line, which, has a lot of very good players here. Derek Brown, Matt Ioannidis, and the interior, both very good. Braven Roy, fine depth on top of it. And then Brian Burns and Yetur Gross-Matos, again, very good edge rush combo there. So I have it as a tier 2 run defense, tier 3 pass rush. I know Panthers fans will probably be upset. Brian Burns should be tier 1 by himself. Not quite how that works. I'm giving it tier 3. That's how I view it. But still, better defense than it is offense. Kicker is tier 2 of Zane Gonzalez. 22nd overall defense, 30th overall offense brings them to 4.31 wins, which is 29th in football, 14th in the NFC.
29th in football, 14th in the NFC. So you had this team last in the division.
I do, yes.
Okay. So I guess the thing is like I think this defense is still going to be pretty good. Like I don't know, like I don't see a situation where this defense falls off a cliff to where, it was top 10 last season and all of a sudden falls down to bottom tier. I think it should at least be okay. I think it's got a good front 7. I think if Littleton bounces back a little bit in the new situation, that'll help, obviously. And then, if Horn, I think, should still be pretty good corner. If Horn's good, then all of a sudden, this, I think, overall is a good defense. That's kind of what I'm relying on for this team. I don't expect much out of the offense, especially because, I mean, at this point, you kind of have to see Christian McCaffrey has to prove to us he can stay healthy. And that's kind of what I believe this offense needs to kind of work out. So I think this defense should be fun, and that's kind of what I'm relying on for the Panthers to pick them 3rd.
Yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, I think that yeah, you're right. There's some issues with this team. I think that this is another team that the correct mindset to have if you're a Panthers fan is we're a year away. We're probably not going to get this all done this year, but hopefully we figure some stuff out, figure out which guys can play, which guys can't. Hopefully one of these young quarterbacks is successful, and if not, we can draft someone next year.
Yeah. Does Matt Corral start a game this season?
I have to think. It's a good question.
A non-injury start, like scheduled start.
Yeah. I'll probably say yes. I'll probably say that he ends up getting a start here. I mean, you say non-injuries, but the way that Mayfield and Darnold play, they're probably going to get banged up just with both of them, not being afraid to run directly into a defensive lineman. I think that'll get him some playing time. But I just think that at a certain point, your team's not doing well. You have this rookie. People are going to want to see what's in the mystery box.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, one more question. If Baker Mayfield plays like 2019 Baker Mayfield. Is that what? No, 2020 Baker Mayfield. Sorry. If he
Mhm.
plays like 2020 Baker Mayfield, do you raise the floor of the Panthers?
I raised the floor. I still don't think they're like a playoff team.
I don't either, but I think at least it's a better team. Like I would probably put it closer to the Saints and the Falcons if Baker plays at that level.
Uh, well, I would not. I still don't think so, but I think I might be higher on the Saints than some other people are. So, you want to just go to your number 2 team on the list?
Yeah, just a spoiler alert there. I just
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean the New Orleans Saints I have at number 2. Once again, this doesn't feel like a hot take. There's a potential that this team I think is awesome. I think that, you're looking at guys like Michael Thomas is back. When Michael Thomas has played, he's been debatably one of the 20 top 5 receivers in football. Um,
Hmm.
at the very least, he's a tier 1 wide receiver as far as the number 1 guy. You look at the depth, there's nice depth here. There's a rookie that they're really high on. If Alvin Kamara plays 17 games this season, he's been one of the best running backs in football. You look at this defense. This defense is elite. There's elite player. There's like 3 or 4 elite defensive linemen on this team alone. There's great linebackers on this team. There's good corners. There's good safeties. There's good everything. Dennis Allen takes over as head coach. I think the defense shouldn't miss a beat. It could be the best in the league, if not one of the best in the league next season. I think there's upside in this offense. I'm not sold on Jameis Winston. I thought there was moments that he was good, and I think that there's going to be moments that he looks pretty good again, but I thought they were pretty safe with him at quarterback. He gets another chance at the starting job after the injury last season. He needs to, I think, be solid for this group. And the other part of it is I don't think the offensive line is that great in front of him outside of Ryan Ramczyk. We'll see what happens, but overall, I like some of the things here. This is obviously an elite defense. Can the offense keep up with it?
Yeah, I think that this team can kind of be a boomer bust type team, very similar to how the quarterback is a boomer bust quarterback in Jameis Winston, who's known for taking chances, certainly, which got him a season with over 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. I think that, I gave him tier 3. He's my 20th ranked quarterback, so that puts him at tier 3. I think, the head coach, Dennis Allen, who ranked 27th in my rankings, but that's because he's first year head coach with the Saints, but he was a defensive coordinator for a while. So kind of weird there. I'm very fascinated in what will we see out of the Saints with no Sean Payton here. Because Sean Payton, you're right, kind of set things up easy for him. But now that, I'm assuming it'll be the same system, but different play caller. How will this work out?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that might knock a little bit because I think Sean Payton was among, he was up there in the he wasn't quite Kyle Shanahan, but for years he's been up in that upper tier of play callers to me. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that works as that transitions. I think, and then once again, like I said, I thought they were pretty, they didn't let Jameis take a ton of shots downfield, which is something that he did a ton in Tampa Bay. And it was kind of a huge difference. And it'll be interesting to see how they kind of evaluate that and go forward.
Yeah, the weapons with this team is so fascinating for me because this is really if everything works out, you can really talk yourself into this being not just a good weapons situation, but a fantastic one because you have Alvin Kamara, who when he stays healthy is very good, and you even have Mark Ingram in the mix there. This is it's a tier 2 halfback room similar to the Panthers. It's just the injury stuff keeps me away from putting it in tier 1. But the receiving core is what's really fascinating with me with Michael Thomas, as you mentioned, sort of are we going to see, the slant man back in action here with Michael Thomas? And he's, the guy won an offensive player of the year award not too long ago. We just haven't seen him much on the field. You drafted Chris Olave, who, if I remember correctly, I think you really liked and I didn't like coming out of college. And then, so he's a rookie. How will that work out? And then, Jarvis Landry as well, who they added. Not coming off his best season, but is that similar to Baker Mayfield didn't look great in Cleveland, getting out of that situation made him look better. Will the same prove true for Landry? You even have depth with Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, Deontay Harris, Kevin White is in the mix, and then at tight end position, Taysom Hill and Adam Troutman. So there's plenty of depth here. The question is, will the top end guys work out? And because of that question, I have it as a tier 3 receiving core, but it could go several different ways.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because it feels like it could be a tier 1, and it also feels like it could be a tier 5.
Right.
I think Thomas has been, for 3 years was one of the elite guys, and
Mm-hmm.
then he's played 7 games the last 2 years.
Right.
There's questions on his injury health. How healthy is he? How healthy can he stay? His desire to play football. There's been questions on all this stuff. And it's the same thing like Jarvis Landry. Is Jarvis Landry going to bounce back and have a decent season, or is he going to struggle? There was a lot of hype in Marquez Callaway last offseason. Didn't really work out. Olave, I thought, was the best route runner of the receivers in the draft last season, or this past offseason. I thought he was the best route runner. He's also a great deep threat, which should theoretically pair well with Michael Thomas, but we need to see all those guys on the field. So to me, it's a theoretical tier 3. We need to see these guys play, and we need to see them play consistently. I think we're in the part now that Michael Thomas kind of has to prove it to us again. We can't just assume he's going to jump back, be that guy again. I don't know. We got to see it again from him.
Yeah, it should be very fascinating. Could go a lot of different ways. To round out the offense, you have the great Ryan Ramczyk, as you mentioned, one of the best right tackles in football. And then you have the angriest man on the planet, Trevor Penning, their rookie tackle, who, picked 19th overall. I'm fascinated by him. I don't know if I would have picked him 19th overall personally, but I still think he should be at least solid. And then for the interior, you have Eric McCoy, who we're still waiting for him to be, he was the 4th highest graded center of PFFs in 2019, but it's kind of been solid since then. So hopefully he can get back to that level. The other, interior, I like Anders Pete. I think he's solid, sort of a mid-tier type guard. And then Cesar Ruiz is probably the weak spot of this offensive line. So with that and with the Penning question, this is a tier 3 O-line for me as well.
Yeah, they've had some tough draft picks, I think, the last few years, especially when you're looking at a guy like Ruiz. If I gave you Trevor Penning or the field to lead the league in penalties, what are you going to take?
Trevor Penning. Yeah, easily. Don't even I rushed that card into the podium.
This guy's a complete lunatic.
Yeah.
He's an absolute lunatic. I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch because, I hope he's at least someone's at the door. I hope he's at least decent, but we'll see. Yeah, I think he has talent, but yeah, obviously the attitude is interesting, and then Ramczyk is one of the best in the game. That's really what's holding this offensive line up for me. If it's a replacement level right tackle, this is probably in the bottom of the group. Right?
I don't know if it's quite in the bottom, but it's because I still think they have other, I like Pete, I like McCoy, but it's that he definitely is adding a lot to it. Yeah, didn't Trevor Penning I forget what the number was, but he averaged almost 1 personal foul a game his last year in college.
Yeah, it was something like that. I gotta say, I didn't watch a whole. What did he go to, Northern Iowa or something like that? So
one of those weird colleges. I always forget after I watch the tape. I always forget what college to play for. I just remember the color of the jersey. But yeah, one of those weird ones.
Yeah, didn't watch a ton of Panthers football last season. I got to be honest. So we'll see how it goes. But the tape has been fascinating. That's for sure.
Yeah, should be interesting. The guy who would have known? The guy who watches Saw, the hype himself up before games might be a bit of a head case.
Just about everybody.
Yeah, I think all of us thought that. This defense is amazing. This defense is just so fantastic. Where you have, tier 1s nearly across the board here for me. Starting with the coverage unit with Marshawn Lattimore, who's fantastic. You also still have Bradley Roby and CJ Gardner-Johnson, who are very good. I think guys who play their role very effectively. And you have some other depth with Paulson Adebo, who was a 3rd-round pick last year, and then Alante Taylor, who they just kind of reached on in the 2nd round this year. But if they like him, we'll see how that works out. And then for the safeties, they added Tyrann Mathieu, who I think will fit the scheme perfectly well. And I like Tyrann Mathieu. I don't know where this Tyrann Mathieu sucks narrative has come from. I think he's still very good. Marcus May, PJ Williams, and Daniel Sorensen have all done nice things over their career. May isn't coming off his best year. Neither Sorensen really isn't coming off his best year. But we'll see if they can add some stuff. But a lot of depth here. They have the high-end talent. Big fan of this coverage unit. And even listen, Demario Davis and Pete Warner can cover as well. So this is a, tier 1 coverage unit.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think everything about this is awesome. So if Adebo improves in year 2 and is better, I think he was pretty good as a rookie. For a rookie, I guess he was pretty good. If he improves and is better, is this the best coverage unit in football?
best coverage unit in football. Well, I think I would have to think. I believe the coverage unit I had at number one was the Miami Dolphins. So spoiler alert for that, I guess. Little tidbit there, where I feel like probably, yeah, probably.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's in that conversation for sure. I mean, there's
Hmm.
just a bunch of guys. I think May's going to be a lot better this season too. I know he didn't grade out really well, but that was also
Hmm.
with the Jets.
Right.
I'm a big Tyrann Mathieu fan. I've been on this before. I think he's fantastic. I think the jack of all trades thing he can do is going to fit awesome with this defense.
Hmm.
Their linebackers fly around. I've never seen faster linebackers than this group. I think in coverage, just getting sideline to sideline, I think is unreal. From top to bottom, I think this group's awesome, especially at the coverage spots.
Yeah. And then to move up to the front seven, already mentioned the linebackers. We also have Zach Bond, who was a 2023 rounder, but hasn't shown too much. But then for the, interior defensive line, David Amuyamata, who is awesome. Shy Tuttle, who is awesome. The edge, Cameron Jordan, who is awesome. Marcus Davenport, who is awesome. And Peyton Turner, who had some good analytics in the short time we saw him in the NFL. So hopefully that can work out. I have it as a tier 2 pass rush because Jordan and Davenport are definitely kind of more complete guys who can rush the passer, which there's nothing wrong with that, which is why it's a tier 1 run defense. Actually, the second best run defense in football is what I have it at. So as a whole, 5th best defense overall. I have this as the 5th best team in the NFC overall, 10th best in the league with 11.47 wins.
Yeah, I think I agree with all that. I think this defensive line is fantastic. Like you said, Jordan and Davenport, I don't think there's a better defensive end group in the league. And yeah, I mean, I just think, as far as rush defense, pass defense, I think it's awesome. And I mean, like you said, I think that there's really nothing else you could say about this group. I guess they could get a little better in the pass rush department, but at the same time, they don't blitz a whole lot because they can rush for and create pressure and cover with so many of these elite coverage guys that it's not really that big of a deal for them to bring a ton of, get a ton of sacks in that regard. I just think that they're good all around.
Yeah. Well, let's tier 3 kicker to round out the Saints. Yeah, I think the Saints are going to be good. I have the Saints as the playoff team. I think that the Saints are, they're always a thorn in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers side. So you got a couple wins adding there. But I think that there's plenty to like about this team. And I guess the one biggest concern I think it's fair to put on the Saints is just what kind of New Orleans Saints team are we going to see without Sean Payton? Well, Sean Payton is kind of that loss. That's the real only concern I have with the Saints team. And I guess, if the receiving core falls off, maybe that could be tough. But I think that as long as they don't they don't have the injuries they had last year, this feels like an easy playoff team for me.
Easy playoff team. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's something. I think they're close. I think they're on the fringe. Like with the other teams in the NFC West, with Minnesota, with potentially Dallas too. I don't want to say they're a lock for a playoff spot, but I think with this defense being elite, I think they could be in the conversation. So
I'd be very surprised if Dallas has a better record than the Saints do next year. And
very
again,
surprised.
I'm not too high on the Cowboys, and I have Saints winning 11 and a half games, but like I think that the Saints have. I guess again, I guess I can see it. The receiving core is the question. There's questions on the offensive line, and there's questions at quarterback. So that's super important, and I get that. But like, I just feel so confident this defense is going to be so suffocating next year.
Yeah, but we've also seen good defenses not look too good because the quarterback is turning over the ball. Yeah, Winston was better in that limited sample size last year, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to bet on Jameis Winston taking care of the football for probably the rest of his career. I mean,
Sure.
we've seen the bad parts of Jameis Winston in that. If he's turning the ball over, I don't care how good this defense is, it's probably going to give up some points in that way. If Michael Thomas all of a sudden isn't happy, if by October we're seeing Alvin Kamara suspended, I mean, I think there's a way that this kind of, the wheels fall off this season. I still think the defense is going to be competitive, and that's going to keep them in games. But I see a scenario where this falls off. I just do think that this is a good football team. I do think that they're in the conversation. I'm probably wouldn't put them in the Super Bowl contention though.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think that they feel a little bit, they feel a tier below that. Again, 10th best in football, so that's kind of where they're at. Where it feels like, you should make the playoffs, but not quite. You should make the NFC Championship game. Is kind of where I feel.
Yeah. So,
all right,
ready
who
to
do you
move
have
on
at number
to
one?
Well, there's only one team left, so I kind of have to pick them. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is the number one team, I think, in the NFC. I think top to bottom, this is the best team. This is an elite offense. They got better, I think, this offseason, honestly, because they improved their pass catchers. They do lose Gronkowski, which I think will actually hurt a little bit, even if he's not the elite guy he once was. Tough injury to start training camp, but I still think this is a good offensive line. And I still think this defense is awesome. I think, going across this roster, love like the coverage unit, love the defensive line, like the linebackers, like the pass catchers. I mean, there's just not much you could talk about. And they got one of the top 5 quarterbacks in football, still doing his thing at age 45 now. Tom Brady's one of the elite guys. I have Tampa Bay. Spoiler, I'm going to have Tampa Bay going to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. I think they're that good.
I also think this Tampa Bay team is very good, although I don't necessarily agree that they got better. I think what they did was they got more depth, and that's kind of they're more, because last year what sunk them was the wide receiver injuries, and I think that they made a clear effort to say we are not going to let that happen again. With Godwin getting hurt, Antonio Brown leaving the team, and then just several other depth injuries that kind of again. In that comeback against the Rams, there was only 2 eligible receivers. It was Mike Evans and Scotty Miller. They had to run Cameron Brate as a receiver because they didn't have anyone else to do it. So, a nice tight end to be able to do that with. So it's not the end of the world. But this season, they clearly made an effort to, build that up. More on that in a second. Let's talk about the 2 guys at the top here with obviously Tom Brady. Is good at football. As someone said, oh, can't wait to see Jackson kiss Tom Brady's butt. Yeah, that's exactly what we will be doing here. That's what we're going to do in this segment because Tom Brady was unbelievable last year. His advanced metrics were, in my opinion, I thought he should have won MVP last year. But, even if you're a Rodgers guy or a Burrow guy, you have to admit Brady was still very much in that conversation. The fact that I guess the only concern you have with Brady is the guy's going to turn 45. Like, can he still keep defying Father Time?
Yeah, I mean, we keep thinking eventually it's going to catch up to him, but I mean, there's all the talk about how, impeccable his training regimen is, how important all this stuff is to him, how important it is to stay healthy. I still think he's going to be fine. I still think he's going to be one of the top 5 guys in the league. He was PFF's second best quarterback last season? Yeah, second. So I don't see a reason. Yeah, I don't see a reason why that should slow down, especially with these pass catchers he's got. It still looks really good in Tampa Bay. I think the interesting conversation is going to be with the transition to a new coach. How does this work? I mean, it was clear this offseason that not everything was perfectly happy in Tampa between Brady and Arians. But Todd Bowles, I think, is a very capable coach and I think could be a very good head coach in this league. He's in a pretty good situation here.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I don't care about all those reports. It's like, who knows how much of this stuff is true or not. We do know that Brady was, at least in conversations with being a member of the Dolphins, but in some weird ways, but like, that's kind of all we know. So whatever. But you mentioned Todd Bowles, one of the best defensive play callers we've seen this past decade. Had him at 20th as a head coach because, again, his head coaching tenure was not quite as good as his defensive coordinating tenure, but he was still good at that with the Jets as well. He got them to overperform expectations every year he was a head coach. They weren't very good, so there's only so much you can do. But I think stuff to like about Todd Bowles as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Jets campaign has almost become underrated.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I think that it's going to be a good thing going forward. And I thought, it was surprising that he didn't get an opportunity to be a head coach last season. But at the same time, I think he got himself a pretty good situation here by this job opening up for him.
Yeah. The wide receiving core is very fascinating. You have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They added Russell Gage and, of course, Julio Jones. What Julio Jones ever going to see? I don't know, but if Julio Jones, when Julio Jones wasn't there, I still had this as a tier 1 receiving core, so I think they're feeling okay. You got some depth here with Cyril Grayson, who showed some flashes before getting hurt last year, and then Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson, kind of, we'll see if we get anything out of them. They were both disappointing last year. And then for the tight ends, still no Gronkowski back unless he comes back in the middle of the season, like some people are theorizing he will. But, Cameron Brate and Kate Otten, you could do a lot worse than that. A lot of depth here, and you have the top end guys. So tier 1 receiving core for me.
Yeah, this is absolutely tier one. And then, like I said, I think because the Antonio Brown situation derailed, this could honestly get better. With Gage at the number 3 receiver, I think he's going to be consistent. I think Julio Jones as a number 4 guy is pretty good, especially when we were projecting him as a potential number 2 guy, and it didn't quite work out last season. I think that's a good spot for him, especially at this point in his career. Uh, I think, even going through the list, it's like you said, Grayson showed flashes 2 years before. Tyler Johnson showed flashes before forgetting to catch the football. Maybe
Mhm.
that turns around for him. Scotty Miller 2 years ago was awesome. Maybe that turns around for him too. So there's 5 or 6 guys you think you can rely on to go catch a football. Not to mention 2 tight ends in Cameron Brate and Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah. I have a theory. I don't know if I've pitched this on this podcast or not, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Of Julio Jones joins the Buccaneers, and everyone kind of immediately says, "Oh, classic, Tom Brady move." And listen, I'm not saying that's not a part of it, but like, do you think another part of it is the Buccaneers kind of have this reputation of being a team that isn't going to make you overly work in training camp? They aren't going to make you, they're known for kind of letting their veterans get some more rest as opposed to like the young players. Maybe that's part of why all these veterans are willing to come here is because like, they're just get more rest over here as they do for, maybe some other teams.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna make your training camp friendly to players are typically going to like that a little bit more. Plus, not only
Right.
that, you also have the opportunity to win a Super Bowl now, which you
Yeah.
probably didn't 10 years ago. So that also helps. Plus,
Hmm.
also, you're living in Florida, which is nice weather. So I think
Hmm.
all of this kind of adds up to it's a pretty good situation for a lot of players.
Yeah, I think so as well. The halfback room, not crazy about this. They paid Leonard Fournette, who was good last year, but again, what will we see from Leonard Fournette? They drafted Rashad White in the third round. I think they're hoping that he can be sort of a James White type role. They've been looking for that ever since Brady got here. Giovanni Bernard has kind of also done that a little bit. There's still Keyshawn Vaughn on the roster. It's a tier 4 running back room for me. There's players here, but I like Leonard Fournette. I think Leonard Fournette is solid, but that's kind of where I have them.
Yeah, I think Fournette's good. And, I keep hoping for Keyshawn Vaughn to kind of figure things out.
Hmm.
I still like his game from college. I mean, he was such a good college player on such a terrible, terrible Vanderbilt team. I'm hoping he can figure it out in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, I think there's depth here. I think that's a good thing, and you don't really need the most important thing is blitz pickup as far as running backs go in a Tom Brady offense. As
Yeah,
long as you can pick up blitz and catch the ball out of the backfield, you're going to be relied upon. And you're going to play. I think Fournette can do both of those things pretty well, and so I think that's why he's going to play a lot.
yeah. Fournette's good for a couple of, oh my God, how did you drop that passes? But other than that, you're right. He can do all the things that you need a halfback to do. Moving on to the offensive line, which obviously now is missing one of the players. We talked about, Ryan Jensen a little bit earlier when Overlap asked the question. Robert Hainsley will step in, who, I think some people talk about him like he's some undrafted free agent. He was a third round pick just last year. So there's some reason to believe he could be effective. But again, third round pick, we're not talking about the first round pick. And even that, there's still a question mark there at the center position. But, tackle's very good. Donovan Smith, Tristan Wirfs, that's a great combo. Wirfs kind of had a bit of a scare with the, needing a cart, but looks like that was just cramps. So we're okay there. And then for the guard situation, they added a former player for your Patriots, Shaq Mason, who's been one of the best guards in football. And then, the other guard, whether it's Aaron Stinney, who has played well in the small sample size with Tampa Bay, he started the Super Bowl when Alex Kappa got injured, or Luke Goedeke, who they drafted, who should be able to fill that role nicely as well. I like this offensive line. I had it at tier 1 before the Jensen injury. I think I'm going to keep it here, but you could definitely knock it down because of the Jensen injury. But again, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to keep it where I had it at tier 1 for now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could knock it to tier 2, especially when you're looking at rookie left guard, rookie center. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that plays a part in it. These tackles are 2 of the best tackles in the NFL as far as left tackle, right tackle duo. Shaq
Mm-hmm.
Mason might actually be an upgrade over Ali Marpet, which is crazy because he was
Yeah.
good. Losing
Uh-huh.
Kappa does stink, but I still think they're going to be fine. And I think Brady boosts your offense. Brady is one of those quarterbacks I think similar to Rodgers, similar to Mahomes, where it boosts your offensive line just a little bit too, because the things they can do at the line of scrimmage.
I think
And
you're
then,
underselling it. I think he boosted a ton.
yeah, that's fair.
Brady's, and not just. I guess what you're saying was sorry. I'll get your second point in a second, but also just with the not just what he does with pre-snap, but just the way he gets rid of football quickly. That's another huge factor.
Yeah. So I think he boosted. And then the one thing they are missing too, I think is important, is they had that sixth offensive lineman with Gronkowski. I think Rudolph's a fine blocker.
Mm-hmm.
He's not as good as Gronk, so I think that hurts a little bit. But yeah, I mean, having that guy who could be that sixth offensive lineman, I thought was really nice. And so we'll see how Rudolph fills into that role. I think that's going to be tough.
Yeah, should be interesting. I do still, with all that being said, I have this offense as the best offense in football. But again, maybe, like I said, maybe you find in a little bit, I'll decide to take the offensive line out of tier 1, which could make it not first. But for now, I'm going to keep it at first. Let's move on to the defense. Let's start with the coverage. This coverage has a lot of guys, has a lot of depth. And I think it's underrated because how banged up it was last year. People kind of are remembering the team it was last year, which was kind of their backup guys. It was like their second team was out there at certain points. You have Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, who are great 1-2 corner combo, and you add on Sean Murphy Bunting, who's been a very good nickel corner for he's been inconsistent. I know kind of played out of position a little bit last year, which is part of why some of his statistics don't look as good, in my opinion. But you also have Ross Cockrell, who is, for a fourth corner is very good. And then they drafted Zion McCollum in the 5th round, who some people love. I haven't really watched much of his tape, but some people really like him. So that's fascinating. And then for the safeties, Antoine Winfield Jr., of course, Pro Football Focus's second-rated safety last year. Mike Edwards is still good. And you have Logan Ryan and Keanu Neal to try and patch up that Jordan Whitehead left role that is no longer there, but very good coverage situation. You also have Levante David, maybe the best coverage linebacker in football, and Devin White, who no one's going to call the best coverage linebacker in football, but still a tier 2 coverage unit for me. They might not have the high-end talent at corner the way some other teams do. Like a team with a great, truly elite receiver, probably going to get some yards on this team, but that's really what you need. Carlton Davis, he can sometimes shut down a specific receiver, but he's not going to shut down Tyreek Hill. We saw that one, right? So because of that, I still have it as tier 2, but still a lot of depth here.
Yeah, I really like this group overall. I mean, it has a ton of length, which is something I really like out of cornerbacks. Ton of length on this group between the 3 guys. They added depth because that was really a problem last season with the injuries. I do think losing Jordan Whitehead hurts, but at the same time, I think between Keanu Neal, Logan Ryan, and Mike Edwards, they should be able to patch that spot together. So I think it's all going to be fine. I think the one thing is just going to be you have to get better play out of Devin White. And once again, it's one of those things where there's really no excuse for a guy with his athletic ability and talent to be bad as a coverage linebacker, right?
Yeah, it's very frustrating. It seems like he sometimes will make the right play, and then all of a sudden, I just feel like he's very much a dog chasing a bone out there. I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it seems like it sometimes, and he's just out of position. It's sloppiness, but I think talent wise, I think he's one of the most talented linebackers in football.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to see it kind of focused on the field and playing correctly. And I mean, Levante David is going to cover up a lot, so he doesn't need to be a superstar. Honestly,
Right.
He doesn't need to be perfect. He just needs to be pretty good to make it a little bit easier on him. I mean,
Well, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, I just think overall, you look at this group, if he's, at least average at the linebacker spot next to David, I think if you just put together, because I think as the standard, nickel defenses are basically becoming the norm. I would say that's almost becoming base defenses now for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a better nickel defense than this back 7?
Yeah, I think so, but it's very good.
Yeah. I mean, it's in the conversation at least. It's got to be one of the better ones. I mean, there's just not a lot of weaknesses when these guys are healthy and playing.
Yeah, I think Green Bay isn't one that comes to mind. There's some good ones, but yeah, they have a lot of talent, and of course, Todd Bowles knows exactly how to use all of these, interesting pieces. Does a great job with that. Going over to the front 7, you have Levante David and Devin White, as we mentioned, who are big in the run defense game, with Vita Vea being kind of the main piece on the interior. They added Akeem Hicks, who, if we can see him stay healthy, he's kind of similar to Julio Jones thing of like, he's been good. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field as much recently. And actually, Hicks hasn't quite been as good, as I would say Jones has been, at least last year. But, small playing time. We'll see if that can improve with health. They drafted Logan Hall with the 33rd overall pick this past draft, who I'm interested in. Seems like he could be a really good sort of defensive end in a 3-4 system, sort of an undersized interior defensive lineman who still wins with power. So I'm interested in seeing how that will work at the NFL level, but it worked at the college level really well. So we'll see. And then, Will Goldson, Nakeem Nunez Roaches, who, is a great sort of fill-in for Vita Vea when he's not on the field. A lot of depth here in this interior defensive line. Don't know if I love the pass rush situation. Like Shaq Barrett, I don't think Shaq Barrett's elite, but I like Shaq Barrett. And then you have Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who I'm hoping more playing time. We can start to see him kind of live up to his college potential. And then Anthony Nelson, kind of an underrated, good sort of rotational piece at the edge rusher positions. So tier 2 run defense for me, but tier 3 pass rush, just because that second edge rusher is kind of still a question mark for me.
Yeah, I actually think Tryon-Shoyinka could be awesome. I think he just needs a little bit more time. I think stepping into this role, he could be very good. So yeah, I think that's going to be really interesting to see. And then, I really like Akeem Hicks. I think I'm higher on the move than you are. And it's just like, I think he could be awesome. I think they're going to be able to limit his snap count with guys like Logan Hall out of the draft, with guys like William Golston, with guys like Nunez Roches. I think they can kind of keep his snaps a little bit lower, get the best out of him. And I think that's going to be just a really good, deep, talented defensive line.
Yeah, I like Akeem Hicks. I think Akeem Hicks, you're right. Again, very similar to the Julio Jones thing. Doesn't have to come in and be a star, just be a contributor.
Yeah, I think so. And I think he's going to have a couple big plays in this season too. I think he really has. I still think he has the talent in him. I just think it's he's not going to be able to show it as much this season. I still think he can have a few big plays for this team, which is going to be interesting because without Jason Pierre-Paul, without Ndamukong Suh, this was really an elite defensive line last season.
Yeah. I thought last season it had some issues. I thought that Pierre-Paul didn't really do much, and I thought Shaq Barrett had it down. I didn't love the pass rush, I guess is what I would say last year. I think the pass rush needs to improve.
Yeah, but it was still a top 5 defense by drop back and run play. So, it still did everything pretty well. And that's even taking into the fact that, it felt like week 4, their entire secondary fell down.
Right.
And they were still 5th in the league in drop back per EPA.
The job that Todd Bowles did last year was unbelievable. This team had none of their starting corners, and he was still finding ways to. The Bears looked like they were going up. They were a high school team playing against Tampa Bay, which okay, yeah, that's the Bears, but also I just think about that game. The Bucs had nobody, and they had Richard Sherman was getting significant playing time before he got hurt, and then he got hurt. So it's what Todd Bowles was able to do last year was incredible. Hopefully this year, though, he doesn't have to do that.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll definitely see how it goes. Hopefully the secondary stays healthy. And then, I think there's a theoretical chance with guys like Whitehead, Tryon-Shoyinka getting better, that this is once again a top 5 defense in football. I think it might already be there even without that.
Yeah, I have it as the 8th best defense in football, but I still do think it's a very good, top 10 defense, which means that with the best offense and the 8th best defense, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning 14.53 games next year. That is, I believe, just a little bit. It's barely over the Packers. I think it's like a 10th of a win, meaning that I have the Buccaneers as my best team in football.
That might be the case for me. I definitely think it's going to be the best team in the NFC right now. I do think they're that good. They have talent. They need to keep these guys healthy, and some of these younger guys have to get a little bit better. But it's really hard not to take this team seriously as the best team in the NFC and potential Super Bowl team.
Yeah, and I think that I feel like the biggest thing. So I have it up right here. It's 0.18 wins away from the Packers. So that's how close I have those two teams. We're talking, a couple kicking tiers would change that. So that's what we're, how close we are. But I just think that the biggest thing staying in the Buccaneers' way has to just be how they've kind of struggled against cover 2 defenses, and specifically how they've struggled against the Rams defense these past 2 years, right?
It seems that way, but I think with some of the moves they made, it kind of feels like they're trying to address it at least a little bit, right? They got guys who it feels like can get downfield. They got
Mhm.
depth at wide receiver spots, and I think if they're able to stay healthy this season, I don't know. Like, would it be surprising if cover 2 defenses are just torched this year?
That's a good point. It might not be that surprising, at least by some teams.
Yeah, I just feel like NFL in general is very cyclical. Like
Mhm.
the NFL offenses have this new trendy thing, defenses counter and have their new trendy thing, and it seems like now it's like, oh, the trendy thing is everyone's going to drop everyone deep in coverage, take away explosive plays, make teams
Mhm.
march down the field, make it really difficult to throw the ball downfield. I mean, eventually it just seems like that they're going to have counters for this. I don't know what the counter is going to be yet, but it just seems like eventually NFL team offenses are going to counter to it, and then it's going to lean back the other way where offenses are dominant.
What will we see more of next year? The Bucks playoff wins or the Bucks beating the New Orleans Saints?
Uh, Playoff wins.
Yeah, I think so as well, right? I think it feels like maybe it's almost too easy. You might bet on they'll have double the playoff wins than wins against the Saints.
Well, yeah, I guess the thing is unless they see the Saints in the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
the most they can probably have is two.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, it's going to be 2 or 3 wins against the Saints, and the max they can have for super playoffs is 3 or 4, depending on how the season goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go just by numbers. It says I should take playoff wins, especially as I said. I think this team's gonna make the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they make the Super Bowl, then it'll happen. But I guess my point is like it seems more plausible that the Saint Buccaneers will make the NFC Championship game than they would beat the Saints twice.
Yeah, I think so. I could see
Mm-hmm.
them losing to the Saints once and then still making it.
Yeah.
Um,
It should be interesting.
yeah, I think the one thing that's going to be interesting for this team. I know you're not a schedule guy. Um, Out of the gate, though, at Dallas, at New Orleans, home to Green Bay, home to KC. That's a gauntlet to start the season. It gets a little easier from there with 2 Carolina games and Pittsburgh sandwiched between, but
Oh my
you also
God, that's
got
the easiest stretch in the history of football.
well. Then on the back half of that, you got Baltimore and LA at home. So 9 weeks,
Hmm.
you're playing theoretically. I mean, you're playing a few different potential playoff teams in that spot, and then you got Cleveland week 12 out of the bye week with Watson back after that whole thing. So it's not an easy schedule, but I mean, if you're one of the best teams in football, it shouldn't really matter.
Yeah, should be very fascinating with all of this stuff. So that is the NFC. NFC is in the books. We're halfway done.
We're halfway there. Um, yeah, good stuff there out of the NFC. I think there's some fascinating teams. Not so much in this division, but I
Hmm.
think it's good stuff. And yeah, so we're getting back into it, and it's going to be my division next.
Are we going to do that? I thought don't we typically do it where we do our divisions? We do the divisions of our favorite team last in it, or are we going to still just go straight to yours?
Oh, I mean, we can do AFC North next. We
Yeah,
can
I
do
thought
Northwest, Southeast.
yeah, sure, we'll do that.
Okay, AFC North next week. Then I
All
fooled
right,
you all.
AFC North. Talking about the AFC champions, the Bengals. You got the Browns and all the chaos going on there. That should be very interesting. The Ravens, will they bounce back? And then one fortunately have to start the show with the Steelers. But other than that, I mean, this should be a fun one.
Yeah, definitely going to be a fun one. One of the better divisions in football.
Yeah, maybe
Looking
just
forward to
show
talk
up
about it.
15 minutes late on that one. If you're a fan.
Yeah, you can catch the end of the Steelers stuff.
Yeah,
Um, it's terrifying though. I mean, like, am I really going to pick the Steelers last with Mike Tomlin?
right. Yeah, he's going to find a way to drag that team to 8.5 wins.
I mean, I'm seeing the reports though of like Mason Rudolph might start for this team, and I'm like, oh boy,
Yeah.
this is this is going to be interesting. So looking forward to that conversation.
Hey, wouldn't be the first time Mason Rudolph has started for the Steelers, and they won 8 games that year. So yeah, who knows? Kyle, let them know where they can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Groden, and make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That's at On the Sideline JK.
Yes, of course, as always, you can check out this podcast on the audio only feed. If you like to listen to podcasts, it's on the Sideline Podcast. Anywhere you get your podcast, that should be available. I said podcast a lot in that sentence.
A lot of podcasts.
Yeah, a lot of podcasts indeed. Kyle, tomorrow night we will be watching a football game, or at least I will. And I'm assuming some of the people watching this will.
I'll probably turn it on for a second. Getting my college football stuff ready too, so looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first month with football games actually happening. We got preseason, college football on the 27th. You're a Wake Forest new biggest fan, so this is going to be awesome.
Yeah. How's my Wake Forest team's championship odds looking this year, Kyle?
Championship?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not very high.
National championship.
No, the problem is, so there's no surprises in college football. I think that's the thing. Like, there's 3 teams that can win a college football championship.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to see your team win a championship, bet on one of those 3 teams and follow those 3 teams. Wake Forest could be a really fun team, though, because they're going to have a top 10 offense in the college football, and they're going to have a bottom 10 defense in college football. And when I say bottom 10, that's in the between 120 and 130. That's how bad the defense is going to be.
That should be interesting.
So they're gonna have some shootouts.
Okay, yeah. I will maybe potentially tune in if I'm really bored on a set. But like, my issue is like, I don't know. The problem with college football is like I spend so much time dealing with football. Saturday is kind of my typical off day. I can't then spend that watching football.
Well, sure you could.
Yeah, I can. Sometimes I do, I guess.
It's just casually watching. You don't even have to like work. You can just watch it and enjoy the game.
I guess so, but then where's the fun in that?
I don't know. I like just watching it just to watch it.
Maybe let's tweet out some hot takes or something.
Yeah, maybe.
If I'm not arguing with anybody, am I really watching football?
Yes, absolutely.
That's not how I do it, Kyle.
This is why I don't have a YouTube channel. I don't want to argue with people all the time.
No, that's exactly that's what's great about it. Yeah, all right. We're out the rails. Thank you to everybody for watching. Kyle, any final thoughts?
I don't even have it up. Days. All right. 36 days till football season. We're getting super close. Looking forward to it.
36. We're almost there.
Almost there. Ready to get some games going. It's been fun.
Yeah, Kyle, I watched a baseball game last night. That's where we're at.
Oh yeah? Mm-hmm. I was at high school football practices each of the last 3 days, so that was fun.
Okay, so we're ready for NFL to start.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, think so. Thank you to everybody again. We do appreciate it. And until next time, see you later, alligator.
Peace.